Hello, welcome to Bird Noise, an Eagles fan podcast. I am your host, Dominic Estes. Today I will be predicting every Week 16 NFL game. I went 8-8 last week in my prediction video, so hopefully I can do a little bit better this week. Starting off with Thursday Night Football, you have the New Orleans Saints taking on the Los Angeles Rams. The Saints coming off a win against the Giants to keep their playoff hopes alive and their hopes at the division title because the NFC South is utter chaos. The offense of the Saints hasn't looked too bad, but they haven't looked good either. They're just kind of meh. They're in the middle. They definitely are part of the garbage division for the NFL this year. Derek Carr might be what they need at QB, but I think they really need some new coaches or something. They need something to change up that offense. Get it more to a style that Derek Carr can run, and get some big playmakers involved in there. They have a good amount of playmakers with Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara, but they need some more. The Rams are coming off a win against the Commanders where Matt Stafford just picked apart the Commanders defense, and then once the Rams had a 20-0 lead, they just kind of stayed there. They got another touchdown. They won it 28-20, but it wasn't close at all. I think that the Rams should be able to easily handle the Saints. The Rams defense should easily be able to contain the Saints offense. I mean, it's very jumpy and back and forth and really glitchy, I guess you could say. But the Rams defense should be able to handle them. So yeah, Rams win. We have some more Saturday games this week because why not? And the first one is the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Both of these teams played last Saturday, so they got a full week's rest before they played another game, which was good. The Bengals coming back in that fourth quarter to win in overtime against the Vikings. Woo! Jake Browning looking pretty good out there. The Bengals have decided that they are not just going to lay down and die. They aren't done yet. This is a big game in a tight AFC playoff race. But Jake Browning, he's lighting it up for the Bengals right now. They need this win to stay in the playoffs. They're currently in a wild card position. But if they can get this win, they might be able to secure a wild card spot fairly soon. This is going to be a tough, gritty game. It's the AFC North specialty. You have the Steelers, their defense pretty solid all of the time. But they just got blown out by the Colts, and it wasn't even close. Like, it wasn't close from the start. They lost Kenny Pickett earlier this year. They've been starting Mitch Trubisky. They benched him for Mason Rudolph, and then Mike Tomlin announced that Mason Rudolph would be the starter on Saturday. And yeah, the Steelers are tanking. I don't think that's right. Like, that doesn't sound right. Like, Steelers and tanking don't go in the same sentence very often, or ever. But yeah, after the news that Mason Rudolph is starting this game, sorry Steelers fans, but Jake Browning is gonna be able to lead the Bengals to this win, so Bengals win. Then for Saturday night, you have the Buffalo Bills taking on the LA Chargers. The Bills coming off a big win against the Cowboys. They ran all over the Cowboys. And kept their playoff hopes very much alive. They are a very scary team right now. They're easily one of the scariest teams that could be in the playoffs, and that's just because of how their team has grown this year. They've had some really tough losses. They lost to the Jets. They lost to the Eagles. They've had some really tough losses. Their team has grown because of it, which is good. The run game showed up out of nowhere. James Cook just absolutely dominated the Cowboys. Josh Allen didn't even have to do anything. He completed 7 of 15 passes. I don't even think he had 100 yards passing. It was very impressive the way the Bills just ran over the Cowboys, and the Cowboys couldn't stop it. But the passing game with Josh Allen, he has the weapons he needs. He's got Diggs, Shakir, Davis, Kincaid, all of them very solid receivers. They're not gonna give up on a play or anything like that. And then you've got the run game with James Cook. That popped up out of nowhere. So a two-headed monster maybe growing in Buffalo right now. The Chargers. Holy cow. What the heck was that, guys? In case any of you missed possibly the most entertaining game of the week just because of the points scored, the Chargers got absolutely destroyed on Thursday Night Football last week. It was the most points ever scored on a Chargers team at 63. Now you may be saying, oh, well, if it's 63, it's a pretty good team. No, it was the Raiders. The Raiders, I'm sorry, they're a good team, but they're not that good. The Chargers just have given up this year. I don't know what it was. I've never seen a team walk out of a locker room and just be either that unprepared or that unmotivated to play in a game. But the Chargers players were clearly done with Brandon Staley on Thursday last week, and it showed 63 points. Like the Chargers threw a bunch of pick sixes or something like that. No, it was fumbles deep in their territory, and that just absolutely destroyed the chance that the Chargers had to win this game. But on the bright side, you guys are free. Brandon, I will be calling the defense. You can stop asking that question. Staley was fired on Friday following the loss. Tom Telesco also fired. And I think right now the Chargers have some deep looking into things to do, trying to figure out who they want to coach their team next year. They're just trying to get through these three remaining games and enjoy the offseason. So, yeah, Bills win. This could get ugly pretty easily. Following that, you have the Indianapolis Colts taking on the Atlanta Falcons. Colts beat the Steelers for the first time in a few years, and they didn't just beat the Steelers, they dominated them. It really wasn't that much of a game. Gardner Minshew looked like a solid option at QB. Led them to a great win, and the Colts are sitting pretty in the 7th seed for the AFC right now, so we'll see what's going to happen with them this week. But they have an extremely easy game because they're taking on the Falcons, who just got beaten by the Panthers. So yeah, everything is bad in Falcons land right now. They had the division lead and they choked it away. Sorry, Falcons fans. But they looked bad against the Panthers, and yeah, it should be a very easy win for the Colts. Then you have the Seattle Seahawks going to Nashville to take on the Tennessee Titans. The Seahawks won last week against the Eagles, and Drew Lock looked like John Elway on that last drive, going for 92 yards. But they should be getting Geno Smith back this week. That will really help them against this Titans defense. The Titans defense, Vrabel has been really good and very solid. The Titans, they lost in overtime against the Houston Texans, and I personally think that the entire NFL wanted the Texans to win that game just because the Titans were playing in the Houston Oilers uniforms. And yeah, I know, when the Titans moved to Tennessee, they were still the Oilers, but when you say a Tennessee football team, you don't think the Oilers. You think the Titans, because they changed the name after like 2 years. He remembers the Oilers as the team from Tennessee. The Titans have been through a rough year. Um, they're evaluating a lot of things. They just got eliminated from the playoffs, and really they don't have anything to play for. So I'm going to go with the Seahawks, who are still in contention for the playoffs, to win this game. Then you have the Detroit Lions taking on the Minnesota Vikings. The Lions got back to form last week against the Denver Broncos, and yeah, I think the Lions will be fine. I know a lot of people were saying that the Lions were a worrisome team because of what they were looking like the past few weeks, but I think every team has good games. They have got their bad games. I think the Lions just had a few bad games, and they're back on track. If the Lions win, they clinch a spot in the playoffs and a division title for the first time in 30 years. Most of us watching this video weren't born the last time the Lions won a division title. And yeah, I say a division title because they're in the NFC North. The last title they won was the NFC Central. So they haven't even won an NFC North title yet. The Vikings are the opponent for the Lions, and they are starting Nick Mullins at QB. And for the rest of the season, I don't really know what I need to say. It's not going to be much better. The Vikings could start either one. They could start Nick Mullins. They could start Josh Dobbs. It's really not going to matter. They are just not good this year. Just plain awful. And I mean, you saw the Nick Mullins interception where he was being sacked and threw it to the defender who was sacking him. And you're still going to start Nick Mullins for some reason. I don't know. It won't really matter in this game. Lions win. They clinch the division. They clinch the playoffs. Congrats. Next up, you've got the Washington Commanders taking on the New York Jets. Do yourself a favor. Do not watch this game. I am sorry, Jets fans, and I'm sorry, Commanders fans, but this game is going to be bad. Very low scoring. The Commies, they're coming off a loss to the Rams, but I think they knew that they were going to be eliminated this year, which is a plus from last year. They didn't know last year. The Commies benched Sam Howell, and they still didn't look good. They just want to get through the rest of this year so they can evaluate, move on, prepare for next year. The Jets, this season has been a rough one. I am sorry, Jets fans, but it's not over yet. You've got 3 more weeks, and then you can rest in peace. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is coming back this year. The defense is officially tired of trying to get the wins for the team week in and week out, and they gave up last week and just said you can have it to the Dolphins. So yeah, Commies win, but everyone who watches this game loses. Then you have the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Jags lost in primetime against the Ravens last week simply because they couldn't get out of their own way. I don't know why Doug Peterson decided to go for a 1-yard pass with like 6 seconds left in the first half. Instead of spiking the ball and taking points or something. But the Jags had 4 marches into the red zone that equaled 0 points. And that is simply the reason that they lost on Sunday Night Football. If they got any points on those drives, 12 points, 6 points, 3 points, like, if they got any points on those drives, they win this football game. And that's just sad. Buccaneers had a really good game against the Packers, thanks to Joe Brady. Baker Mayfield lit it up and got the first opposing QB's perfect passer rating at Lambeau Field. The Bucs tied with the Saints for first place in the division. This is a tough game. The Buccaneers definitely need this win. The Jags, they're trying to get back to their winning ways because they are now in a very tight race with Houston and Indy for the division. So it is a tough game to predict. Both of these teams really are going to win this game, but I am going with the Buccaneers to win this game. Then you have the Arizona Cardinals taking on the Chicago Bears. I don't know what to say about this game. There's really not much I can say. The Cardinals, they're a bad team. They tried, but it didn't work out. They have been eliminated from the playoff contention, and they have some major decisions to make going into next year. The Bears, meanwhile, have not been eliminated from playoff contention despite their best efforts, and somehow look a little bit decent. They hung with the Browns last week, quite impressive. As best as they could, they stayed in that game. They lost on an awful unanswered prayer pass. But I think the Bears can get the win this week. So I'm going with the Bears over the Cardinals. Then you have the Dallas Cowboys taking on the Miami Dolphins. The Cowboys got stampeded last week by the Bills and just could not stop the run game. They had a very rough defensive game. Dak Prescott had a bad game. The offense couldn't get anything going. It was bad. The Cowboys looked very beatable last week, so yeah, it's going to be rough going to Miami for the Cowboys, but that's where they're going. The Dolphins, they got to win in December. It was against the Jets, and Tyreek Hill did not play, which was a little bit surprising. It didn't matter, though, because Jalen Waddle filled in wonderfully, and the Dolphins got the dub. The Cowboys and the Dolphins have trouble with teams that are over 500, and it's going to be a close game, but because I am an Eagles fan, I refuse to pick the Cowboys to win any game, so I am going with the Dolphins to win this game. Then you have the Green Bay Packers taking on the Carolina Panthers. The Packers coming off a loss to the Bucks where the defense stayed home. The offense of the Packers looking pretty decent. Jordan Love has definitely earned himself another year as a Packers starter, and he gets to take on one of the worst teams in the league this week, so that should be very interesting. The Panthers, though, won on Sunday. Yeah, you heard me right. The Panthers won a game, and they may have just ruined the Falcons' season. The Panthers have not looked good all season, and be it offensively, defensively, it's just been bad. So I am sorry, Panthers fans, but your team really is going to be black and blue by the time this beatdown stops from the Packers. Packers win. Following that, you have a game with a lot of playoff implications. The Browns are taking on the Houston Oilers. Yes, because you won the game against the Titans, where the Titans wore the old Oilers jerseys, you have earned the right to be called the Houston Oilers again, but only for right now. Anyway, Browns versus Texans. The Browns, they found their QB. It is not Deshaun Watson this year. It is Joe Flacco. And surprisingly, he's doing really well. The Browns played well on both sides of the ball lately. They have the chance to make a run in the playoffs. That would be quite surprising in a good way. I hope that the Browns can get somewhere with Joe Flacco at QB. Much better than Deshaun Watson at QB, let's be honest. And yeah, they've got a good game going against the Texans, who didn't give up after losing C.J. Stroud last week. And the bad news for the Texans is that he is expected to miss another week. I've got to think that the Texans might just decide to bench him for the rest of the year and save him for next year. And I do think that even though they didn't run out of magic last week, Case Keenum came in, filled in very well for C.J. Stroud, led them to a victory. the Texans' magic will run out against the Browns, and the Browns are going to win. Then on Sunday Night Football, which will be on NFL Network this week, you have why? Just why? The Denver Broncos taking on the New England Patriots. The Broncos lost a heartbreaker to the Lions last week, where they were just absolutely dominated. Sean Payton looks done with Russell Wilson. The Broncos also really hurt their playoff hopes with that loss, and Sean Payton looks kind of done with Russell Wilson right now. I feel like the fan base is too, but as long as they don't need Wilson to do everything this week and play the hero ball, the Broncos should be fine because they are playing the New England Patriots, who are tanking. Bailey Zappi is starting, and it's just a dumpster fire there. Belichick could be fired at the end of the season. No one's really sure, but the Broncos are going to win this game anyway, so Patriots fans, I'm sorry. Hopefully you guys are a little bit better next year. Not too good, though, because you guys had 20 years of dominance, so chill out. Then we have some Christmas Day football that starts with the Las Vegas Raiders taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. The Raiders, they put 63 on the Chargers. I'm sorry. Every time I looked up and saw the score had changed, I just started laughing. I'm sorry. I do think that the Raiders may have scored all of their remaining points against the Chargers, but Aiden O'Connell has done enough to get the starting job, I believe, next year. He'll finish out this year. They'll evaluate him over the year. They'll evaluate him during the off season, and I think we'll see. But the Raiders need this win if they want to stay alive in the hunt for a playoff spot. That isn't going to be an easy task because the Chiefs got back on track with a win against the Patriots last week. And it isn't pretty over there in Chiefs land. Mahomes, he's really only able to get his Ma'ato going in Travis Kelce, who is about the only person on the Chiefs team that can catch a football. Mahomes looked really frustrated with Kadarius Toney last week. Because, if you can take away the one receiver Mahomes has, stopping Mahomes is pretty easy. We've seen it these past few weeks. But I think the Chiefs still get the win. They clinch the division and secure themselves a playoff spot. Then you have the New York Giants taking on the Philadelphia high-flying Eagles. The Giants, they had a bad game against the Saints where Tommy DeVito was injured, but then he came back, but really it didn't do anything. The Giants, they're just about to be eliminated from the playoff. It's not pretty in Giants lands. They're just trying to get through the last few weeks of this season and into next year where hopefully it can be a little bit better. The Eagles, hey, we're going against the Giants this week, all right? So maybe we can get the run game going because Boston Scott always scores at least one touchdown a game against the Giants. But the Eagles need to fix a lot of things. The defense needs help. The offense needs a revamp. It's not great, but I think we need to slow down. We're 10-4. We clinched the playoff spot. We can figure these things out these next few weeks and then be ready when the playoffs roll around. I do think that the Eagles can right the ship this week after dropping 3 straight, and I think the Eagles get the win against the Giants. And then on Monday Night Football, you have a potential Super Bowl matchup with the Baltimore Ravens taking on the San Francisco 49ers. The Ravens looked rough against the Jags, but Lamar Jackson did Lamar Jackson things and managed to overcome and help his team get that win and a step closer to the first seed in the AFC. The outcome of this game will depend on which Ravens team shows up. If it's the Ravens team that struggled with the Jags, then the 49ers might be able to just run away with this game. If it's the Ravens team that absolutely dominated the Lions, it might be a little bit different of a story. We'll see. But it really just depends on which Ravens team shows up. The Ravens are not nearly as consistent as the 49ers, who are just dominating teams week in, week out. Their offense is borderline unstoppable. Debo, Kittle, Ayuk, McCaffrey. Who are you going to stop because the others are getting through? Their defense is very solid. This should be a really good game. I will be taking the 49ers to win this game just because I think they are the more consistent team. But I look forward to this game a whole lot. Well, there you have it. Those are my predictions for this week. Feel free to let me know what you think in the comment section below. Feel free to like and subscribe. This has been Bird Noise. I'm Dominic Estes. And as always, fly Eagles fly.